Hello, everyone. This is Kevin Zimmerman here from Unlocking Black History on YouTube. I'm glad to be spending some time what's happening here in America. There is actually two separate judicial systems that we really do need to be uh, paying some attention to. And before we dive in, I want to give you a disclaimer. As you can see, I'm not in my same similar environment. I'm actually not even in the state of Texas, which I live in Collin County. I'm currently in Massachusetts. I found a location in a hospital here where I'm here with family in Massachusetts. But this situation is one that's extremely of great importance. It is national. It's got national attention. And I thought when we talk about the plight of blacks in America, this was an ideal topic that should not be ignored. So I'm going to ask you to be bear with me here where the conditions are not ideal. I'm not in my home office. I'm totally out of state in the state of Massachusetts, not Texas, in Collin County where I live. But I still feel that this is important enough for us to take a look at when I talk about the tale of two different judicial systems. So, of course, the primary focus that sparked this was the issue with Carmelo Anthony, who was a young teen who fatally stabbed and killed a young man by the name of Austin um, Austin uh, Metcalf. Metcalf was the person uh, that Carmelo Anthony stabbed. Carmelo Anthony, he ended up dying. But we're going to look at the two different things here. You see here that Caysen Allison was 17 years old who stabbed a classmate. He fatally stabbed a classmate. And the reading I got, and I'm going to be using props today, it says that on July 23rd, 2025, in Belton County, Texas, that Caysen Allison was convicted of, hear me, criminal criminal negligent homicide for, hear me, fatally stabbing Joe Ramirez in a bathroom in Belton County High School, at Belton County High School. So once again, what we have here is Caysen Allison was convicted of criminal negligent homicide for fatally stabbing Joe Ramirez in a bathroom at Belton County. For his crime, his sentence was reduced to criminal negligent homicide, and he received a 10-year sentence. And that's important to keep that in mind. Okay, that's very important to keep in mind. Now, when I went to do some research before I came and I addressed you with the matter, what I could not find on record was a um, description of the racial demographic of the jury in Caysen Allison's case. I could not find written anywhere on record the difference or the racial makeup or the racial demographic of the jury in Caysen Allison's case. Okay, Carmelo Anthony. Let's move on there. On June the 10th, 2026, in Collin County, Texas, Carmelo Anthony was convicted of, hear me, murder for, hear me, fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf at a Frisco High School track meet. Once again, on June the 10th, in Collin County, Texas, Carmelo Anthony was convicted of, hear me, murder for what? Fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf at a Frisco High School in Collin County, Texas. Now, we see that Caysen Allison was convicted for fatally stabbing Joe Ramirez, a Hispanic man, in Belton County, and was convicted for 10 years. Karmelo Anthony was convicted of murder for fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf in Collin County. His punishment was 35 years. So what I think is important that we do is that we take a look at the comparison between the two. From my research, what is suggested that in the Caysen Allison case, that Joe Ramirez was in a bathroom who threw the first punch, and a fight broke out, a brawl broke out. In that brawl, Caysen Allison stabbed Joe Ramirez, and Joe Ramirez died. Again, the jury in his trial saw his defense of stabbing Joe Ramirez as a means of self-defense. That was their interpretation after they got the full story. In essence, we know, because we've seen it all across America, Joe Ramirez swings on Caysen Allison. Caysen Allison fears for his life. Caysen Allison stabs Joe Ramirez, fearing for his life. Joe Ramirez dies. Caysen Allison is convicted, but of a lesser sentence. He gets criminally negligent homicide and a sentence of 10 years. When we move on to the next trial, the Karmelo Anthony trial, Karmelo Anthony was at a track meet in Collin County, which is approximately 3 hours, right under 3 hours from Belton County, Texas, right? He's sitting in a tent, under a tent, because it was raining at a track meet. However, my understanding is that the tent that he was sitting under was the opposing team's tent. Austin Metcalf did not like the idea that Karmelo Anthony was sitting under the tent. So Austin Metcalf, in turn, demanded that Karmelo Anthony leave. An argument pursued. I think there may have been, I can't say factually in this case, Karmelo Anthony said something to the degree responding to statements that Austin said, well, make me move, or you can't make me move, or something of that nature. Nonetheless, it was still a verbal confrontation. It's also an understanding that there's some conflict in who else was with Austin Metcalf, because Austin also has a brother, and there is some conflict as to how close proximity the brother was to all of this, and it may have even been his brother and some. Nevertheless, nothing but words are being exchanged. Yet, Austin Metcalf takes it upon himself to physically go and put his hands on Karmelo Anthony. Austin Metcalf shoves Karmelo Anthony. He pushes Karmelo Anthony. Karmelo Anthony then goes into his backpack, pulls out a knife, stabs Austin Metcalf in the chest, and takes off running. Austin Metcalf dies. Before I go any further, I want to make sure that it is emphasized on behalf of myself and Unlocking Black History on YouTube. I feel it is a grave tragedy that anyone is killed in this situation. I hate the idea, I hate the notion that Austin Metcalf was stabbed and died. And I am not in support of anybody being killed. But here is the difference when we talk about the tale of two judicial systems. What we do know about Karmelo Anthony's jury is not one person on that jury was black. Not one. I live in Collin County, and Collin County has approximately or over 120,000 black citizens that live in Collin County. Yet, out of 120,000 black citizens, they could not find one black person to sit on that jury. You see what my t-shirt reads, the statement that my father taught me years ago. Anything about us not represented by us is not for us. As we examine the two, and I'm going to use my props here, like I said, I'm not at home. We're going to look at the differences between the two cases, okay? In the case of Caysen Allison, the victim, who's white, the victim was Jose Luis Ramirez, who's Hispanic. Okay, so a white man stabs a Hispanic man. Okay, in Karmelo Anthony's case, Karmelo Anthony is black, and he stabs Austin Metcalf, who was white. We know that both of their incidents took place at a high school. This is the similarity. In Caysen Allison's case, the brawl broke out in the high school bathroom. In Karmelo Anthony's case, the brawl broke out on the athletic field in the stands under a tent at a high school. Okay? In Caysen Allison's case, the two teens had prior dispute and discussed fighting earlier. In Karmelo Anthony's case, it's been reported that the two did not know each other. But I do want to place emphasis on something in particular that I and other Black Americans noticed when it came to media reporting of the fatal stabbing of Karmelo Anthony stabbing Austin Metcalf. They painted this rosy picture of Austin Metcalf, like he was a stand-up guy who, based on the observation, was one whose character should not be questioned. But when they would portrayed the image of Karmelo Anthony. They portrayed Karmelo Anthony as a thug, someone who lacked character. Um, you would often see his mugshot, like you see on the screen right now. You would see pictures of Austin Metcalf smiling in white shirt ties. And many, and don't take my word for it, please go back and research for yourself. In many cases, you saw images that, based upon looking at the images, demonized Karmelo Anthony. Karmelo Anthony was a good student and never been in trouble, doesn't have any background history of trouble, and had a 3.7 grade point average in school. It's a good kid. He was a good kid. What troubles me here is in Karmelo Anthony's case, he's black, Austin Metcalf, right? Austin Metcalf felt that he had the authority to physically engage with Karmelo Anthony, and he shoves him. He put his hands on him. Still, the jury that did not have one black person on it did not find that Karmelo Anthony had or was in a situation where he could have feared for his life when he pulls out a knife and stabs Austin Metcalf. Like I told you, I live in Collin County, Texas. And at any given day in Collin County, you can go to a racetrack gas station. You can go to a QT gas station. You can go to Buc-ee's if you want to. And it is not uncommon at any of those locations. You can walk through Walmart. You can go into, I don't know, possibly, maybe I'm just going to throw a name out there, Target or Best Buy, although I don't go to Target. You can walk down the center of the street if you want to. You will find multiple men with guns physically displayed, with guns visually displayed. And it says that if my response towards you with your gun is such that you could claim that you feared for your life, that you are willing to exercise lethal force. That's what that says. Somewhat in the case of George Zimmerman, although it wasn't the state of Texas, it was Florida. Trayvon Martin was a young black kid who had a bag of Skittles and a soft drink. George Zimmerman, a grown man, engages Trayvon Martin because he's walking in a neighborhood that George Zimmerman thought he should not be in. They get a physical altercation. George Zimmerman fears for his life, pulls out his weapon, shoots and kills the kids and get acquitted. We want to say that we all are under the same judicial system, but here's what's interesting to me. The jury that did not have one black juror in a county that possesses over 120,000 black citizens felt that Karmelo Anthony should not have feared for his life to the degree that they could have, and it was allowed, that the judge could have done it himself, reduced his sentence from murder to a lower sentence. They didn't do that. They didn't lower his sentence to criminally negligent homicide. They didn't lower him. They threw the book at him. Although Austin Metcalf approached Anthony, pushed Anthony, instigated the fight. The jury that did not have one black person on it suggested that a white man imposing himself on a young black man by shoving him did not constitute the right for the young black man to pull out a knife and stab him. But they accepted it in the Caysen Allison case. I want you to square that for me. Now, I also know this, and I want us to remember when sometimes we think things have gotten so much better, and to some degree it has, but we can never forget where we are in America, especially in the state of Texas. Texas was a former Confederate state. What was the purpose of the Confederacy, since we're talking about the plight of blacks in America? The purpose of the Confederacy was to, one, to preserve the superiority of whiteness and white supremacy, and two, to preserve the institution of chattel slavery. What does both of them suggest? That the black man has no rights that the white man needs to respect. Point blank, simple. Because we see two similar incidents. Why is it so that the white man, Caysen Allison, feared for his life so that he could pull on a knife? And in Collin County, the big argument was that you can't have a knife on school grounds. Well, Caysen Allison had a knife. But still, he gets 10 years for fatally stabbing Joe Ramirez, who happens to be Hispanic, by the way. So the white man stabs the Hispanic man with a knife that shouldn't be on school grounds in the state of Texas. But in his case, they still find that we're going to reduce this charge to not guilty of murder. We're going to charge him with criminally negligent homicide, which allows the judge to reduce the sentence to just 10 years so that he can have, I guess, some rehabilitation and get back to his life. In Karmelo Anthony's case, Collin County and the judge had the opportunity to reduce his charge from murder to, what was it? Not criminally negligent homicide, but I'm losing my train of thought here. But the sentence could have been reduced. It didn't have to be murder, but the jury and the manslaughter. That's it. His case could have been reduced from murder to manslaughter, but they chose the higher sentence. So what is the difference that we see? We see Caysen Allison, white, Karmelo Anthony, black. Caysen Allison stabs a Hispanic. Karmelo Anthony stabs a white man. I don't know the makeup of Caysen Allison's jury, but Karmelo Anthony did not have one black person representing him while he's supposedly being tried by the jury of his peers in a county that has over 120,000 black people. And because he did not have anyone representing him, although he feared for his life, although it was the white man that approached him, shoved him first. His life wasn't valuable enough to be considered. His notion that he feared for his life was not taken into consideration. That was a black man who stabbed a white boy, and this was the outcome. And this is the reason why we often find ourselves being upset. Folks, how do you square that? Because I would love for somebody to help me understand. I don't like the idea that Metcalf died. But I'm going to ask this question. What would have happened if Metcalf had not put his hands on that young man? That young man, though he's sitting somewhere that you don't like, why couldn't Austin Metcalf go get some authority that come over and see if they could have a verbal conversation to persuade Karmelo Anthony to leave the tent? You give full power and authority to Austin Metcalf to physically disrespect this young black man. And we don't know what Karmelo Anthony was thinking when he saw Austin Metcalf, and possibly more, because to my understanding, his brother may have been present. Could have been his brother and his friends. It could have even been what I was taught. Because let me remind you, when I was born, the Civil Rights Act had not been passed yet, and the Voting Rights Act hadn't been passed, and blacks in America were still fighting against Jim Crow, where we were not seen as equal to the white man. I said that to say that my father instilled in me, if anyone is bigger than you, who has the advantage over you, neutralize that fight. Don't ever start a fight. Don't provoke a fight. But you neutralize that fight. Hence is why America accepted Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, you could lynch us, burn us, shoot us, kill us, use the government to spray us with the force of a fire hose from a fire engine or a water spout. Could sick dogs on us. And as long as we exercise the nonviolent retaliation or the refusal to retaliate against your brutality to treat us less than human, America eventually, even after years of fighting for him to be recognized, embraced the nonviolent approach of Dr. Martin Luther King and celebrate him on an annual basis. Malcolm X wanted the same thing for black people. Malcolm X, however, took a different course. Malcolm X said, I am not going to provoke a fight with you. I'm not going to start anything with you. But if you come to the black community, or if you engage a black person who is not trying to provoke any form of violence, they're just living their life freely, and you try to hurt us, we will kill you by any means necessary. That was Malcolm X's idea, because we have every right to be treated with respect as you feel that you do. In this case, Karmelo Anthony was not given that leniency. But guess what? If you go and you do a research and a study, you will find a grave similarity to what happened to Karmelo Anthony. This case, these two cases, the tale of these two cases couldn't be any clearer. Here we have Caysen Allison gets in a fight with a Hispanic man who provoked the fight upon him. He gets the chance to fear for his life. He gets the chance to take a knife. He gets the chance to stab Joe Ramirez for provoking that fight. He kills Joe Ramirez with that stabbing, but his sentence is reduced to criminally negligent homicide and only sentenced for 10 years, where Karmelo Anthony, he doesn't get the chance to claim self-defense. He doesn't get the chance to neutralize the situation. He doesn't get the chance of having it considered that Austin Metcalf provoked the fight. And when he stabs Austin Metcalf, his sentence said, "How dare you, a young black man, stab and kill a young white man?" Like my father said, we have got to vote in masses. If that is the process, that is going to put people that have our interest in office so that we can gradually look for the progress of our future. Because I'll leave you with this. Anything about us not represented by us is not for us. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. Thank you once again for spending some time with me, and I look forward to seeing you again. By the way, next Sunday, this upcoming Sunday, part 2 of the chronological series of slavery through the present will be coming out, and we're going to be sharing some more vital information that can help anyone who wants to learn Black history and the plight of blacks in America. And of course, we clearly see the differences in the systems that are in place, not back during slavery, not back during Jim Crow. These systems have evolved to affect changes in the way that we see that the law is instituted right here in 2026. Thank you very much for taking your time, for spending with me, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video. Take care.